Hello student, I Sheetal Jagtap, Assistant Professor in Kekewa Graduate College. Today we will discuss on object-oriented software testing, in which first of all we should know the brief overview about different problems and research concerning object-oriented testing. Why we needed testing, as in home additional difficulties like how to test abstract classes, how to test inherited classes and methods. So today we will discuss on some points like testing problems, test strategy, unit testing and integration testing, object state testing. So, first of all, we should know when a subclass or superclass is added to a class, the inherited method must be retested. Retesting even if the overriding and overridden methods are semantically similar. If the order of specification of superclasses of a subclass is changed, the subclass must be retested. For example, there is a code that class foo protected int I public foo I is equal to 5 public int. There is a method which returns I into n. Class bar is there which extends foo which in having z variable with bar method having value z is equal to 0, and in main the objects are created and then by using object dot methods are called. This is the simple code, but instead of int if I should put integer then there will be an error. Okay, so how these problems can be occur and how we can solve these problems by using Gunk, that is the scientist. He said that by understanding that particular problem by complex interdependency, the object state behavioral testing and tools which we have used for testing purpose. Dependencies to keep in mind that procedural programming, data dependencies between variables, calling dependencies between modules or between module and variables it computes, differential dependencies between a variable and its types. Dependencies to keep in mind in object oriented that class to class, class to method, class to message, class to variable, or method to a variable, method to message, or method to method dependencies. The next topic is test strategy, which includes order to unit or integration testing. A good strategy according to M.J. Harlot or J.T.M.C. Grigor and K.J. Fitzpatrick. They said that using the hierarchical structure of the object-oriented programming, reusing the test information from the parent class, incrementally updating it to the test children. Now, actually how does it work? Looking for the base class, looking for base classes, designing test suite for each base class, for each method, and third one is testing history which are associated for each test case with the attributes with its testing. Now, how actually it does works? Suppose there is a class A and B is the subclass which test from the superclass. That subclass test history is derived from parent test history, whereas child test history is incrementally updated to reflect the difference from the parent. The test history knows which test actually it executes from the subclasses. Its inherent attributes are retested. Attributes which require new test case are identified easily. The next topic is unit and integration test problems. What is actually unit and integration test? Suppose there is a single unit, a single problem occurs, then this single problem solving is nothing but the unit testing. And when this problems becomes more than one unit, then it is called as an integration testing. Some question about unit testing. Like, can the existing unit test techniques be applied for object-oriented program? Or what test model, test generation method or test criteria can be used for this test? Or how to perform unit tests systematically? Then the answer is provided by Hichim Kim and Jisoo Woo scientists by using 3 steps: that test each method separately, or test the data binding, focus on the binding between the methods in the class, or it can be tested the method sequentially, in which object state testing means in object oriented programming it is important to check each state and each transition in every class object to ensure how confidence in an object oriented program, whereas object state testing is focused on the testing that the state dependent behavior of the object. The state of an object is the combination of all the attribute values of the object, whereas state transition describes the different states and transition of a class in the context of its position in the inheritance hierarchy. An object may transition from a state to state as a result of an event, which may be yield an action. General testing procedure. We taken here some example, like there is a tester who tests the model which is provided by the programmer, and afterwards there is a case used for the used to test that particular data, and it will goes to the user which will test by the test cases, and it will finally get the result. This is the scenario for general testing procedure. There is one more example for object state test approach, in which similar concept is there. There is a tester which tests under a class test. Again there is a model by using test data and test case the scenario is tested. Then again user will run that particular test and we get the result. If there is a defaulter or error occur, then it will display that particular error. Fault analysis.